Welcome back to the Profit Builder Unscripted. Today we're talking about how do you get out of the role of chasing after people for results and micromanaging, and how do you get people to be more successful and take more ownership in their jobs. All right, let's jump in. This morning I had this interesting opportunity to coach Dortha on my team this morning about writing a position agreement for a new hire that we're making on our team. And as I was reading through the job description or position agreement that she had written for this position, it reminded me of how often when I have conversations with leaders about, do you have job descriptions in your place in your business, that they oftentimes sound more like a task list than actually an agreement with somebody that is clear accountability and clear results attached to it. And, as I read through this position agreement that Dortha had written, she had a lot of the tasks that she wanted this person to do. And as I was reading through it, I kept asking the question, well, how will you know it got done? And when do you want to get done? And according to what criteria? Like, my mind always goes to what are the results that you're after as opposed to the task to get there. And it made me think about, and I shared this story with her about building a project, right? When you begin to build a project, you go and you assess the situation and you look at the job site and you look at what's working, what's not working, what do you want to have be different? And then you're having some conversation with a customer about what they would like, how would they like it to be. And before you ever begin construction, before you even sign a contract with somebody, you first determine what is the scope of work that you're going to do. What is it going to look like when it's finished? And when you have that clarity about where, like, what is the blueprint, what's the schematic, what are the specs for that job, it's at that point that you can look at, from the end in mind, look at back at where your starting point is and say, all right, what is it going to take to get from where I am to from where I am starting out to where I want to be, to this end result. So what's interesting is that the same thing is true when we're working with employees, because unlike, when a lot of times when you're working, this happens to be a new hire for us, but it's taking over some of what Dortha already does. So it's not like a completely new function. It's just moving some of that to somebody else. But, when you look at a project, you would never consider, when you start a project, to just determine, all right, well, here's what needs to be done to start with. We need to demo. So you wouldn't go in and start demoing things and then go, oh, all right, what are we going to do next? Like, what do you want to build? Right? Like, first of all, nobody would ever keep you on a job site if you started demolishing their house before you had a plan, right? You had an end goal. And that same principle that you use every day in running projects and building successful jobs is that you're clear about what the outcome is before you begin. And the same thing is true when we run our businesses, and the same thing is true when we manage teams. So as I sat there with Dortha and we went through the position agreement for this marketing assistant, I said, well, I said, so what's the goal here? What's the result that you're after? And we kind of went through each of the line items, and we determined two things. One was she needed to get way more specific, way more measurable, and have it be time driven for when she wanted to have things done. Now, sometimes this is challenging for us, and Dortha expressed this to me because she said, I said, how do you know when it's done? Like, how do you know that? And she goes, well, I've just been doing this for so long. It's just automatic for me. And I go, exactly, because that's the thing where you've got to take it out from, what we know in our heads and put it down on paper so that somebody else can actually be successful in being able to produce a result. Because the other thing that we talked about was, when that's not clear, when you're not really clear and they are not clear about what the results they're after, then what will happen is you'll end up micromanaging them, and they end up being more like helpers than people to actually take ownership of a result. And the reason people do that is not because people are lazy, People end up being helpers to us and we end up micromanaging them because we have not told them how to win the game. We've not told them what we're building to, right? Imagine if you tried to do a project and you had no idea what the end scope was going to look like. And somebody just said, I'll tell you as we're going along. Well, it would be horrible, right? So it's the same thing with the people who work for us. And so as Dortha and I started to talk about it, the first thing we did, one of the things I said to her, I said, do you know that expression called SMART agreements? So if you have not heard this before, it's specific, measurable, there's clear accountability, realistic, and time-driven. Specific, measurable, clear accountability, realistic, and time-driven. So when we're making agreements with people, when we're writing position agreements, when you're writing contracts with clients, the more specific it is, the more measurable it is, the more there's clear accountability of who's responsible for what. Realistic being you didn't give them a schedule of, 2 months when you know it's going to take 2 years, right? And time driven is that there's a time frame by when something's going to get done. So an example was on the podcast, right? There's a certain number of tasks that or a certain part of the podcast function that Dortha wants this person to take over. And first of all, I said she wrote a whole procedure within the job description or position agreement. You could use either one of those terms. I'll tell you why I use position agreements in just a second, but I said, you have the whole procedure in there. So I said, let's move the procedure out, right? The procedures are what's the result you're after, and then it has all the tasks to get to that result. Those are important. I appreciate that. But what are the top 3 deliverables about what accountability do you actually want this person to have in the deliverables of handling the podcast? What are the top 3 most important things? And when we identified those, I said, then, okay, and what are the deadlines for those things of when they have to be in? What's the time driven, right? So what was the specific thing that was a deliverable, measurable? Anybody could look at it and go, yes, that got done. In this case, it happened to be the transcript was finished. And that has to be done by, at least the Friday before, and that all of the setup within our platform that we use is completed by Tuesday, first thing in the morning, 8 a.m., so that the team can review it and make any changes by the end of the day on Tuesday afternoon. So it was things like that. It's specific, it's measurable, time driven. So the more we do that with our teams when we're writing position agreements, the more we can really help them be able to take ownership, the less we have to micromanage them. And I said to Dortha, I said, do you ever feel like you're chasing after people to get results? Because she has some other people who work for her that don't work for me. And she was like, yeah, it's really frustrating. I go, and it's time consuming, right? And she goes, yeah. And I go, this is your key right here. Like, this is the thing that if you want, and this is my invitation to you, if you want to be able to spend less time chasing after results with your team, first thing is have position agreements that are clearly defined with the results of what it is that you're looking for. And one thing I'll just say is that I have a arsenal of position agreements that I have written for the construction industry specifically. It's over 2 different dozen position agreements in all the different roles, from marketing to estimating to design to accounting to project management to field management, carpenters, foremen. Like I've got all these position agreements that I've pre-written that are great starting points for you if you're interested in it. They're all included in my course called Build Your Dream Team. I'll drop a link down below, so that you can go check it out. The course is actually a really great course that's all about really kind of what this topic is talking about today, but also gives you some guidelines about how to not only write position agreements, but implement them, get agreement about them, and then also how to manage results on the back end, which is like you've got it written, and now how do you create an existence system for managing those results with your team? So that's what the course is about. So if you're interested, I highly recommend that you go check it out, and you'll get all the information you need on that page. So why do so position agreements that are really clear about the results start to have you and them be able to manage at a higher level versus all of the minutia in the particles and pieces. And if you get my course called Build Your Dream Team, you'll also hear about how do you define the three most critical things in any job. And listen, I've been doing this for lots of years in this industry, and I'm telling you, there are three key things in every position that are the key deliverables that drive the success of that position. And when you're super clear about that, and they are super clear about it, you both will have more confidence about how to manage your way forward. One of the things that I always say is that construction can be very complex. And but running your construction business doesn't have to be when you know the critical things that help you keep your finger on the pulse of what drives your success in each department and each position. And that's really, that course talks a lot about that. And as I say, the last few modules actually walk you through how do you create a feedback structure with your team so that information is coming to you as opposed to you chasing after after them for it. It was one of the other things that Dortha and I talked about too, because I said, once you get this done, I said, just like you and I have regular meetings that we have scheduled consistently, where we have an agenda, we have whatever action items from our last meeting, like we have like certain things that are always on that agenda. You're going to do the same thing with this person, because that's really going to help you and them stay on the same page, where you're not going to have to be chasing after them. So that's another thing that course speaks to. So the one final thing I want to just share about, why do I call them position agreements? Well, position agreements are all about creating agreement and getting buy-in with your team. And one of the things that I have learned over the years is that, and I think that you could probably attest to this too, we take our agreements more seriously than implied expectations or demands. Nobody likes to have expectations made of them. You know, we kind of think, well, you work for me, I pay you, I expect you to do your job. But if you want them to do their job more consistently, there's three things. One, define what that is and what are the results you want as opposed to just the tasks. The second part of it is get agreement about it. Get it in, I treat position agreements like people treat contracts in construction. Like, I suggest that you and them sign it once they've agreed on it. And then you have an existence system as a third piece for managing those results. How do you know that they actually got it done? These are just some tools that I have learned along the way, that I've shared with many of my clients, that I see it's just stuff that really works and really works well. And the course, the Build Your Dream Team course, I encourage you to check it out. It's a series there's 6 modules, but I break each module into separate, smaller videos so that you can kind of take it, one chunk at a time. You can watch them, you can listen to them while you're on the go, because I give you both the audio and the video files. But it's a really great it's a great resource for helping you build and develop your leadership skills. And if you have leaders on your team, it's a great course to use to help you and them start to build stronger leadership skills, so that you can kind of move out of the realm of I'm micromanaging or I have to chase after people to results, to how do you build a stronger team around you who takes ownership, who has accountability, where there's clear deliverables. Just like how you run a project, right? The ability to be able to grow your business is directly proportionate to your ability to grow a strong team around you. If everything goes through you, you're going to keep your business small. But if you can build a team who takes ownership with you, now you've built a foundation on which you could grow. That coupled with consistent processes and systems, man, that's where the foundation is on which you're able to grow a larger business, a more profitable business. Yeah. So I hope you found today's topic to be helpful. Dortha and I laughed because I told her at the end I was going to be recording a video about this right afterwards because I said, what a great topic, like how perfect. In the thing about when you're doing this with your team, I said to her at the beginning of the conversation, I said, I really appreciate everything that you put into this, and I'm going to tell you that this is going to be a great learning opportunity for you, especially as you grow your team and you grow your business. Um, I want you to have this be a useful process for you as well. So, um, check it out. Check out the Build Your Dream Team course. I think that you'll find some great resources and tools in there. Like I said, the position agreements, those over 24 pre-written position agreements are included with the course when you get it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to pop me a note here in the comment section below or send me an email, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. As always, thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of this community. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the Profit Builder Unscripted.